Thank you, Eric. It's a privilege to be here. We're going to be talking today about how Wanji manages her in-house law department. A lot of the other panels that you heard today focused on the practice of law, and we're going to be focusing on the business of law. Wanji, you came into your role as general counsel of PayPal in February of 2017. Since then, there have been a lot of developments that have shaped the company. You inked partnerships with Facebook, Google, Apple, a number of fintech companies, and you led the legal department during an investigation into the company's subsidiary Venmo, which faced an investigation over its disclosure and transfer policies. So you've been quite busy. What led you to join the firm in the first place? I mean, you spent 13 years at American Express. What convinced you that this was an opportunity that you wanted to take on?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. First, thank you for having me. It's great to be here with all of you. So as you mentioned, I was at American Express for the 13 years prior to joining PayPal, where I initially joined the company taking on the role of lead product lawyer. Part of the reason why I made my way to PayPal is that I supported our PayPal CEO, Dan Schulman, when he was at American Express. So we brought him in 2010 to lead a new business unit we were starting called the Enterprise Growth Group, which was focused on mobile payments and kind of our foray into kind of a financial inclusion focus. So a little bit different than traditional American Express, really looking at different customer segments and providing kind of alternative banking, if you will, services to those who were underbanked or underrepresented in the financial services space. And so after supporting Dan for about 4 years, he then left to join eBay with the promise of really being the CEO of PayPal once PayPal was spun off from eBay to shareholders, which happened in mid-2015. I remember when he left American Express, people said to me, "Wow, are you going to follow Dan to PayPal?" To which I said, "Absolutely not. I love what I'm doing. I love where I am. I would never go to PayPal." That's literally what I said. PayPal was spun off to shareholders in July of 2015. In October of 2015, which was 1 year after Dan had left and the end of his non-solicit, he reached out to me and said, "I can think of no one I'd want to solicit more than you. Do you want to come talk to us?" My initial response was no, because again, I didn't really necessarily see myself leaving American Express at that time. And more importantly, I had a goal in mind of becoming a general counsel, and he wasn't offering me the general counsel job. He already had a general counsel, but he really wanted me to consider joining the company. So I told him that I would not be able to come out to California because I was very busy. I was in New York City at the time, but if any of his colleagues were in New York, I'd be happy to have a chat with them. And I did that, and long story short, was completely blown away by the people I met, including the then General Counsel Louise Pentland, Bill Reddy, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and I agreed and was resigning probably 3 weeks later and picking up my family and moving to the Bay Area, which has been amazing. So I started there in November of 2015. And one of the reasons why, so why did all that happen so quickly? I had a good indication from Louise Pentland, the current general counsel, that she said to me point blank, if I gave her 2 years, she would make me general counsel ready. And there was something about her that was very authentic, and I believed it. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do 2 years in the Bay Area, and then I'll be general counsel ready. And I didn't imagine that it would be at PayPal. And so I joined the firm as the lead product lawyer, and about 13 months later, I was appointed as general counsel when Louise assumed a broader role, really tantamount to a kind of chief administrative officer role, where she oversees HR, legal, corporate affairs, which includes our government relations and corporate communication functions. So that's the long story. That's how I got here.
One of the first initiatives that you took on was integrating the company's 170 lawyer and staff across 200 markets. You held a global legal summit for the company. Can you talk about the importance of that integration? Why did you go about doing that, and how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that work actually started in my prior role as the lead product lawyer. It became very apparent to me when I joined the company and sort of began to find my way around that our lawyers were not necessarily embedded in the business. There was a bit of okay, I'll wait for a phone call and wait for people to contact me and request my services. And the problem I was seeing developing was that, features were being launched, products were being launched, markets were being, pursued. And, when you would sort of after the fact look at said launches, products, features, new markets being pursued, and you would ask, was anyone from the legal team engaged? And you had instances where the business would say, no, we called so-and-so the day before the launch to get some input. And, at that point, it's, there's not a whole lot you can do but nod and say, well, I hope this works out. So it became apparent to me that we really needed to kind of change our service delivery model as a legal team. And then, fast forward to becoming general counsel, this is something I really began to sort of promote just beyond my product legal team and more broadly across the legal team globally. So I think it's done a couple of things. Again, it's ensured that, as a company, we are taking the right approaches just in terms of complying with regulatory requirements, that we're taking the right approach in terms of making risk-based decisions, in terms of where we go and how we do what we do. And it also ensures a more kind of enriched experience for our lawyers and legal professionals, in that they're not just, again, sitting around waiting to be contacted and providing support when asked, but they're really with the business at the outset, kind of ideating. They're able to use kind of a different side of our brain that as lawyers we may not always get to tap into in terms of, bringing your whole self and, not just bringing kind of your legal expertise, but, we're in the business of helping people move their money, and so we all touch money and use money, and so you bring your whole self to bear in terms of how you like to see products and kind of what a product experience should look like and kind of what works and what doesn't. So I think it's also been a great experience for the lawyers to kind of get in early, and we have some really exciting products. I mean, I think it's really a privilege and a blessing to work for a company that has a very sort of mission-driven focus, which is to democratize financial services and really make it easy for everybody, whether you're an individual, a merchant, an aspiring merchant, selling tchotchkes from your basement, really making it easy for everybody to move and manage their money. And so, whether you're doing that through PayPal, whether you're doing remittances through our Zoom offering, whether you're, a millennial or like me, not a millennial, using Venmo, and then, having to leave a little message as to kind of what the money you are sending is for. I think we're offering, a lot of different services and kind of diversified services to many different segments. Mm-hmm. So.
And the company has a general counsel, chief legal officer structure, which we've seen adopted at a number of different companies. At Microsoft, Brad Smith became the chief legal officer. How does that work? Mm-hmm. What is your rapport with Louise Pentland? Mm-hmm. And can you talk about that? Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when people always say to me, oh, well, when you joined the company, did you know you were going to be general counsel? And I already talked about that. I did not know. And then people, thought I sort of knew I was going to become general counsel, but I was as shocked as my colleagues were. I mean, I didn't really see that coming. And so the day she told me that this was going to happen, it really caught me by surprise for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't expect it would happen at PayPal. And two, I wasn't familiar with the, sort of chief legal officer, general counsel structure. And so upon learning that this is what we were going to embark on, and Louise had never done this before, I certainly had never done this before, we began to kind of look outward at companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, Google,
that have kind of employed this kind of structure to figure out kind of what works and what doesn't. And we just agreed that we would, there was no playbook, and there was no, okay, you're going to do these 12 things, I'm going to do these 12 things, but our communication channels are very, very open, probably to the dismay of our respective husbands. We talk all the time. We text a lot. She's an active texter. I'm an active texter with emojis. We are in constant communication. And we have just found a really sort of logical way to kind of divide the labor. So, I have responsibility for running the day-to-day legal department. And she lets me do that. She gives me the space to do that. And so it's not like we're two in a box or tag teaming that happens. Where she has been very helpful and where we partner a lot is in supporting our board of directors and in corporate governance. So that is an area where I actually had very little experience. And so it's been great to learn that from someone who, even prior to coming to PayPal, was a public company general counsel for 14 years prior at Nokia. And so she has, very rich experience and has been really great about, showing me the ropes, exposing me, sort of giving me the experience that I need to kind of really thrive as a general counsel in a really protected way. And so what I mean by that is, there have been many occasions where, you're embarking on kind of new endeavors and maybe your presentation to the board didn't go exactly how you had dreamed and hoped and imagined it would. But she's really good about saying, okay, that was good, and she's probably being more generous, and I'm probably being more harsh on myself. But she'll give you instant feedback or give me instant feedback and say, consider doing this next time. And I love that, and I'll go do it next time, and we'll see. You can see kind of the reaction of the board as to whether it's landing properly. So that's kind of how we divide the world, and it's working for us. I know it's, again, a unique structure that doesn't maybe work at all companies, but I think we're making it work at PayPal.
Nice. And Louise came out with a statement fairly recently about what's happening at the border. And we saw this week Brad Karp, the chair of Paul Weiss, and Gary Wingens, the head of Lowenstein Sandler, write an op-ed in the New York Times about providing legal counsel to families who have been separated at the border, as well as representation for legitimate asylum seekers. What stance has PayPal taken in all of this? And can you also speak to the broader pro bono initiative that you've led while you've been at the company?
Sure. So first I'll start by sharing with all of you that I am a first-generation American. I am the daughter of immigrants from Guyana. And so watching, on television, kind of the families being separated and children, frankly, being separated from their mothers is heartbreaking and really, in my opinion, misaligned with our, sort of values as a country. So putting that aside, in terms of what we are doing to help solve that. I mean, I will say that we are firmly supportive and focused on helping to reunite children with their families. It's important, and again, I think it's aligned with kind of who we are as a country. And really two ways that we're doing that, certainly aligned with the Paul Weiss initiative, is we have a pretty active pro bono program that I actually started when I joined the company. And so one of the things that Louise was intrigued about when I first met her was the fact that I actually started the pro bono program at American Express in 2005, which was pretty early on for in-house pro bono programs. And I had come from a big firm. And the only reason I did that is I had come from a big firm where we had a pro bono program. And I got to American Express, and 2 weeks later I was being given an award for my pro bono work. And so I was asking my colleagues, well, who do I talk to about our pro bono program? And they said, what, a pro bono program? We don't do that here. So I thought, okay, that check one, I've got to change that. So anyway, fast forward, telling Louise about that, she said, that's great, I want you to start a pro bono program here. And so I had previously, again, started a pro bono program in New York and Minneapolis and really thought I was so masterful in launching a pro bono program in 2 cities at the same time. But what I didn't appreciate is that Louise's vision was to launch not only in our home state of California, but also in numerous locations across the U.S., from New York to Salt Lake City to Austin, Texas to Omaha, Nebraska, and others, as well as in 13 different countries outside of the U.S. Now, I had not done that before, but I am open to any challenge, and so I took her up on that and learned a lot along the way, but we ended up launching a pro bono program that has since even grown in terms of moving into other markets and cities. And so I say all that to say we are very focused, as it's squarely aligned with our values as a company, to ensure that asylum seekers have access to incredible legal support, and many of our volunteer lawyers, as well as non-lawyers, we certainly have opportunities for them to get involved with providing assistance to clients. We, through a number of the legal services partners that we work with, are able to provide that kind of support. And then the other way in which our company gets involved in making a difference here is that through our PayPal Giving Fund, which is in essence a platform that leverages PayPal to be able to match donors, individual donors, with charities. And so we've done a big push to promote the fact that there are a number of organizations out there that are very focused on providing relief for immigrants, including reuniting children of immigrants with their families based on this recent border crisis. And so we're also, in that way, helping to kind of match the charities with donors who want to support those initiatives and efforts.
Diversity and inclusion has also been at the top of your agenda. How have you gone about establishing that at PayPal?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, again, it's very much aligned with our values. So a lot of this is just very natural to who we are, which makes it really exciting and really great, because you're not sort of fighting a current or trying to introduce something into an organization that no one's supportive of. So in terms of how I think about diversity and inclusion and the impact that I can have and that PayPal can have is as follows. Certainly as in-house counsel, I feel like we have a real opportunity to move the needle at majority-owned law firms. And I feel like if we're not doing that, it is not going to happen. I mean, I think many of us have heard for years the notion of really making the case for diversity and inclusion based on it being a business imperative. Well, it's not going to be a business imperative for law firms unless we in-house counsel, which is where the majority of the law firm business comes from, unless we make it a priority and demand that. So just as an example, as we are opening new matters and selecting outside counsel, it is now part of kind of our culture as a legal team to really demand that the firms that are pitching to us, that represent us, are bringing diverse teams to work on our matters. And I don't mean just to the pitch meeting, because people have tried to bamboozle me with that. But I mean on an ongoing basis. So don't just bring window dressing. And I worked at a firm and I refused to be used as window dressing. I'll just pause and leave it at that. So, but in any event, I think it's important for us to play a role in advancing diversity at majority law firms. The other thing we're doing is we are very actively finding opportunities and successfully finding opportunities to use minority and women-owned law firms as a way to also advance diversity and inclusion within the legal industry. So we've had some good wins there. And we really try to be very objective in who we use. And I know you get in your comfort zone and you say, like, I always use firm ABC. But what I have realized over the course of my career, and there are so many great law firms out there, but what I've realized over the course of my career, if you're not deliberate with something, it just kind of inertia sets in and you end up dealing with the same 5 people at the law firm and you realize there really is no diversity, and then 10 years goes by and you've really missed opportunities to make an impact. So from an external perspective, that's some of the work that I've been doing since I've been at PayPal, and there's other work that I've done before, but in the interest of time, I won't get into that. The other side of that coin is internally. So again, have done a lot of work to actively move the needle externally, but I really also kind of look internally to figure out kind of where are we and what could we be doing. So, I'm also very focused on D&I from an internal perspective in terms of our employee base and our team members. And so A couple of other things I do to promote that internally as well is, one, I talk about it a lot, and my team may be irritated and tired of hearing about it, but that won't deter me. So I do talk about it a lot, and I demand that every position that we're filling within the legal team, that we're considering a diverse slate of employees before we fill it, and there really is no excuse to do that. And sometimes it takes longer to fill a position, but we are looking for the best and brightest to join our legal team. And in order to do that, I think we need to look far and wide. And as I mentioned, we've got a really specific mission as a company, and we need diverse, sort of thought, diverse backgrounds to be able to kind of go out and be successful and to win. And I'm very big on winning. I want to win. And then the other thing I do, just to ensure kind of a bit of quality control, is within our law department, to the extent we are hiring lawyers at the director or senior director level, because VPs would report into me directly, I interview the finalists. So what I've asked people to do is to bring me their best 2 candidates, and we'll interview them. And if I see that there's not diversity within your best 2, then we're going to have a conversation for me to understand what happened and why, and kind of what your diverse slate actually looked like. And I've had occasion to kind of send people back to the drawing board if I am not satisfied or convinced that that's actually happened. So I think it's really important, and I see it on my team. Just, I'm very proud of our team and what we've been able to do. Are we perfect? Are we at the end of that journey? No, we still have a lot more work to do, but I'm very pleased with how it's trending.
You have a great perspective, having both been at a law firm. You were at Pillsbury, and you've been in-house. What have you seen that's worked in the area of diversity and inclusion, and what hasn't worked? Successes, failures? Can you point to any examples?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, as I said, I think if you're not focusing, if you need to make a change in your life, like if you need to lose 5 pounds, you got to focus on it. That just doesn't happen. I speak from experience. So I think it's focus and really, being thoughtful about what you want to achieve, and really, sort of setting in motion a plan to do that. I think there has been some movement in a positive way in large law firms in terms of the progression of women, but it's 2018, and I think even there, we're certainly not where we need to be. In terms of Black lawyers, it is not good, in my opinion. I mean, I'm aware of many majority law firms where there is 1 Black partner in 2018, and that concerns me. It really concerns me, and I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. And so again, as in-house counsel, I think I am, I've seen firsthand how sending a letter to the chairman of the firm when you have worked with a diverse lawyer who's doing a great job, and how that can influence someone's partnership trajectory. And I do that, and I take time to do that, and I encourage my colleagues that I work with on my team to do that, because I think that can really make a difference in someone's career, and really kind of not only further emphasize with our law firm brethren that diversity and inclusion is really important to us and one of our company values, but it also can really help them sort of think through how they can get more diverse lawyers in their partner ranks in particular.
What are the metrics that you look at when you are going to hire outside counsel as it pertains to diversity? Because this gets talked about a lot among general counsel. We've seen MetLife and Facebook and other companies launch initiatives, and there's a lot of talk around that area, but can you drill down to specifics about, what do you demand from your outside law firms?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'd like to see year-over-year improvement, and I think that's important, and that speaks for itself, as opposed to your glossy brochure and the people that you, parade in front of me. So I think that's the biggest thing that I look for. And look, you may not be, because I think numbers in isolation are not especially helpful, because someone might throw out a number in terms of, female partners or diverse partners, and I think without context, it's hard to glean whether that is good or bad, or you may be down 10% or you may be up 10%. I also like to hear about what their own goals are and aspirations for providing a more inclusive workplace within the firm.
law firms can skew numbers for sure. Can you talk about mentoring at PayPal? Is there a formal mentoring program, and how do you approach more junior lawyers and identify junior lawyers and their career needs?
Sure. So yes, we do have a formal mentoring program at PayPal. I'm actually the executive sponsor of our Women's Interest Network, which is called Unity. And through Unity, we have a formal mentor program. We also have a shadow program where you can volunteer to be a shadow or to be shadowed, which is really just in essence another form of maybe sort of more short-term mentoring. I spend a lot of time thinking about ensuring that we're an employer of choice, not just within the legal team, but more broadly as a company. And I think a lot of what is going to be required there is making sure that people have an enriching experience at the company, and that there is engagement and opportunities to kind of learn and develop as lawyers. And so I really promote and encourage all of our senior lawyers to think about who they can be mentoring, not just within the legal team, but even beyond. And I mentor people on my team. Some asked me to mentor them when I was in my former role as a lead product lawyer. Some have asked me to mentor them now. And if people ask me, I'll do it. I'll absolutely do it. I'm not shy about doing that. I think it's important, and I applaud people for asking.
We do have a couple audience questions, if that's all right.
Yep.
So first, it sounds like people were excited to hear about your pro bono activities. How do you engage those on your team who are not lawyers in those activities?
Yeah, great question. So there are many ways to engage them. So our program is quite structured in that regardless of location, we've opted to partner with legal services organizations in order to provide the services we're doing. And so that way they kind of source the clients. We kind of know what kind of practice area and subject area we're dealing with. And so just a couple of recent examples of pro bono work that I've done that involved lawyers and non-lawyers. So we partnered with Skadden and One Justice here in the Bay Area to go out and help folks who have criminal records get some of their criminal charges expunged. The reason why that's important is because if you have a criminal record, it can be very difficult, if not impossible, to be gainfully employed, which then sends you back into a cycle of crime, and to get housing, which is obviously very important to have. And so we had non-lawyers engaged in that initiative. Also, I have gotten very adept at filling out DACA applications. And we also have non-lawyers doing that as well. And so we really try to structure our program in such a way that we have lawyers and non-lawyers actively participating. And one of the things that I did this year is, last year I was sort of saying it would be really great if everyone did pro bono, go out and do it, it's fantastic. This year I said everyone's doing 12 hours of pro bono or volunteer work related to something here at PayPal. And then, as you mentioned, I hosted a global legal summit for my entire global legal team where we did 1 hour of volunteer work at our legal summit to give everyone, that was in February, a jump start for those who are maybe slower to start. And so we track our progress, we measure what we do, people enter their time into a database that we have. And again, there's no reason why all of us can't do 12 hours, that's an hour a month of volunteer service, including pro bono, in the course of a year.
That's fantastic. One more question. What role does the chief legal officer or the general counsel have in helping the board understand, experience, and set expectations for culture? And do you think that the CLO or the GC is or should be the ambassador of the brand for the board?
So, I view myself as sort of the keeper of the integrity of the corporation in my role as general counsel. And certainly, we have a very active board, and they are very interested in our culture and really have strategically been involved in helping to shape that over time. So I think there's certainly a role that the general counsel and the chief legal officer can play in beginning to, or continuing rather, to shape the culture of the company and make sure that everyone's acting in accordance with that culture. So it's great to have a culture, but you need everyone kind of swimming in the right direction and making sure that people are upholding those values that you've set as a company as you begin to kind of operate under a given culture.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking Wanji and
Thank you.
Casey for a great discussion.